the British Parliament has over 650 members, but it only has 400 seats. And the reason for that is because they want everything to be crowded and have a sense of urgency about everything which is being debated. So feel the sense of urgency in this room with all the brains working on these bills. Try to move the debate forward. If what you are going to say is merely repeating something you've said in the past, change it up. Seek new ideas. Ask questions. Okay? This session is now in order. We will begin by hearing the members from the Republican Party.
In addition, I would like to extend the Republican Party's support for S-15, or the Iran Ballistic Missile Sanction Act. As senators, we look out for the security, health, and it is important to sanction ballistic missile technology in dealings with Iran. This makes the region safer and more secure.
All right, Senator Franken.
Corporations can either be people or they can be not people. And if they are people, then they have a cap on their political spending. If they are not people, then they cannot donate to political candidates.
We're going to open up the debate for 15 minutes on the S-44 End Pay Discrimination Through Information Act.
It will take away businesses' rights to determine how much they should pay somebody. And they could very easily come under fire for a supposed instance of discrimination.
Women and men are equal in every other respect, and for some reason in our fairly messed up country, they are paid different amounts for doing the same amount of work. This is essentially wrong. We cannot permit this to go on. Although it is accurate that this may cause some companies to feel a little more hesitant about hiring women, this is nothing compared to the discrimination that women face every day by getting paid less for doing the exact same work as a man.
I have great fear, and I believe the Republican Party has great fear that this bill would actually cause companies to hire less historically discriminated groups. We can look at previous acts like this, like the Americans with Disabilities Act, which actually ended up causing companies to hire less people with disabilities.
All this allows is for people to talk about their salaries and check if the company they work for is discriminating against them or taking advantage of them monetarily.
There are many different calculations for this number and this inequality. And perhaps you want to think about what number exactly do these companies have to publish? Is it month by month? Is it total? Is it past? Is it present? What about privacy? So consider these different takes on these measures of inequality.
If we can see a pattern in which a company is discriminating against a certain group of people, and we can see that throughout their paychecks there is a trend in which that is directly connected to their race, their gender, or some other physical attribute, we need to be able to see that, and other people need to be able to see that in order to create more progress, in order to create a safe work environment for everybody, not just women.
We will now enter debate on the CEO Employee Paycheck Fairness Act of 2017.
CEOs do not do 70 times the work of an employee. CEOs do around 4 to 5 times the work of an employee, not 70. We need to pay them to that justice.
Our country was founded on the principle that everyone can work and achieve their goals by their own work. We shouldn't be taking money and transferring it to other people, and CEOs should be able to keep the money that they earn.
Companies will lose the tax deductibleness that they had previously with the CEOs by passing this bill.
Having a wage not go up with inflation is the same as having it cut.
It's clear that companies will only respond to this bill by firing employees, and we will end up severely hurting the people that this bill is aiming to protect.
And while they may end up paying more taxes, these employees will be able to live a decent life where they are not slowly getting paid less and less as their experience grows and they become more competent.
50 years ago, the average CEO in the United States is paid 20 times more than the typical worker. Now that ratio is 300 to 1.
The increased financial burden on companies that outsource will only cause them to transfer that tax onto the consumer.
We need to make sure that our country's resources are put to the best benefit inside of our country, and we are not boosting other nations' economies while ours struggles.
I encourage everybody to support this bill in favor of the Americans, the people of your country that deserve respect, they deserve a stable job, and they deserve to survive and thrive.
We need to give an incentive to bring jobs into America, not a penalty for shipping them out.
We're going to move on to bar removal of individuals who dream and grow our economy act.
Our minors need resources to get to study in schools and their education, but this takes away from it because we are putting our own taxpayer money into illegal immigrants that are coming here, and then they get safeguarded from deportation.
That is against the American spirit. My American spirit is right here. Let me show you.
Right now, we will not deport people who are brought in here as children.
We are saying that if you commit a crime, an adult commits a crime, then their child can be responsible for their crime.
We are splitting up families. This is highly immoral. We're splitting up families and deporting parents, ripping children away from them.
They did not have a choice on whether or not they were brought to the United States.
And they've assimilated to this country. They should be allowed to stay here because this is their home. If we're talking about justice, justice would be sending these people back.
If we ended this policy, we would lose $400 billion from our economy over the next decade. Why would we want to do that?
The Born Alive Abortion Act does have many good things involved. The roots are good of this bill. We do need to be supporting these children who've survived these abortions, but we also need to make sure that the women who are trying to get abortions' rights are not violated by this act.
This is a matter of saving human lives, not interfering with a woman's right to have an abortion. Every year, children across the country suffer and die because of mistakes or miscalculations by abortion clinics.
By all scientific definitions, once the fetus leaves the womb, it is alive. And by neglecting to help them and treat them, we're essentially murdering them.
I would like to discuss the Stop Illegal Reentry Act, or as it has been nicknamed in recent years, Hates Law. What this bill does is it will add 57,000 people to our prison systems, and it will charge an extra $2 million when our prison system currently only uses $7 million.
Prison system is the only way to keep these people safe while keeping our citizens safe as well, to ensure that there are no more instances like the atrocity of Kate Steinway.
These are people who have came back 3 or more times. These people will come back if we do not send them a strong message, and this bill does that.
We should fix our visa system so that these people can apply for visas easier and become citizens easier.
It is well past time to end the favoritism to congressional re-election candidates without regard for their qualifications.
Why should we disqualify eminently successful candidates just because they've served law?
The Democratic Party cannot support this bill. We do not understand the purpose of it. If a senator is re-elected for another term, then they should be able to serve that term because the citizens of this country have chosen them to.
This bill completely undermines the system of seniority we have in the Senate. That's why there's people who have higher standing, for example, chairman.
And we don't need a bill for this. If somebody doesn't like us, we step down.
There are over 100 senators, and that's why I view any limit on terms as unnecessary, as there's not a serious chance that one senator gains so much power that he can kind of pose a threat to democracy.
Companies, just like people, have views. Not only do they have views, but there are also groups of people that are working together. They should be able to have the freedom of speech and should be able to make the contributions that they believe.
We just don't want people to donate so much money that they can give one candidate an advantage over the other.
Companies have a right to donate money to political campaigns to advance their desires.
We want a country run by everyone, including the workers, including the people that do not get to control where a certain company's money goes.
And if there's no limit on how much people can talk about what candidate they like, and no limit on how people can give speeches about supporting each candidate, why should there be a limit on how much people can actually donate to that candidate?
It is not fair to the people who work for these companies because their money that they have helped produce is going into something that they do not support.
Keep in mind that whenever you're going to modify the Constitution, you are basically drastically changing the direction in which the country is going to go. Okay. First of all, it is in the Constitution that we have freedom of speech, but it is not clearly defined that money is speech. Okay, and that would be the decision that this Senate or this Congress would ultimately take. We're now going to subdivide into subcommittee sessions.
I believe that anyone that entered this country, even if it was their parents' fault, should be deported.
And if they were to, when crossing the border, decide they're not going to go across with their parents, they would be stuck in dangerous border towns where they're extremely vulnerable to human trafficking.
And currently, undocumented immigrants make up $11.6 billion. They contribute that to our economy annually.
My problem with this bill is that we're granting legal status and work permits to people who came here illegally.
After 18 months of their 18th birthday, they will need to prove that they're either attending classes, serving in our armed forces, finding or attending job interviews, or actually working to prove that they're a valued member of our society and that they're helping our economy.
As a person who would be independent in a country by themselves, they need to have some source of revenue. They couldn't just be sitting around doing absolutely nothing.
So all delegates that are in favor of this specific amendment, please raise your flag. This passes.
All those senators wishing to vote for the Iran sanctions bill, please raise your placards at this time. This vote is merely consultative, given that the final approval will be given in the final session, but we get a good understanding of where the parties lie. Thank you very much.
So let's jump right back into debate on the CEO Employee Paycheck Fairness Act of 2017.
It's not our job as a government to be censoring or controlling how much our own citizens make. It is just to enforce a minimum wage, but how much a CEO makes is out of our jurisdiction as a governing body.
There needs to be an additional bonus or an additional tax break for paying their employees fairly. Because companies are interested in making the most money, not being ethical or paying all of their employees the same.
What this bill would do is say, unless there's a certain ratio between how a CEO earns and how the workers of that company earn, the company will not be able to deduct the paycheck of that CEO from their taxes.
Getting an abortion itself often causes a lot of stress for people. This will make doctors not want to perform abortion procedures, and this will make women not want to get abortions. Every single medical procedure, there is a chance that something could go wrong, and abortion is no different.
What we're trying to do is make it so that abortion clinics aren't afraid to give abortions because they're afraid that they're going to get sued. We want abortion clinics to be able to give women abortions.
Well, all those who are in favor of this amendment, please raise your hand. This does not pass.
Removing tax breaks for companies that outsource jobs will only hurt customers, as the increased financial burden on companies will force them to raise prices on consumers.
Senator Crapo.
What we're doing is we're failing in our role to protect our citizens. We're taking away their jobs.
So now basically with only a 0.1% tariff, companies won't have an incentive to leave and they'll stay. But at the same time, consumers will be impacted as much, so it's a perfect compromise.
Okay, thank you. Let's open it up to questions. Senator Portman.
Foreign goods? Do you mean just all goods coming from foreign countries, or all goods from companies that outsource?
From companies who outsource into the United States. We feel that too high of an import tax will incentivize other countries to also create high import taxes, which will hurt all workers.
I would be in favor of a slightly larger tax on all imports coming in.
It is important to maintain relations with other countries. And we cannot do that if we pull out of all our free trade deals.
In
favor of Amendment 51? Please raise your placards now. This amendment passes.
It imposes a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence on anybody who enters the U.S. more than 3 times after deportation.
This bill would send a message to those illegal immigrants who are coming to hurt our people. And those people who want to come shouldn't have to come illegally.
It is unreasonable to categorize all Mexican immigrants as criminals based on a few cases.
In 2010 to 2014, there were 121 illegal immigrants that killed people.
To just get your paperwork viewed by the USCIS takes 8 months. To get a petition for a visa can take another 1 to 3 months. And then just to get an interview can take another 2 months. This process is astonishing.
Whether illegal immigrants come here after being deported have committed felonies or not, they need to be punished.
Why should we punish them just by trying to get a better life for them and their family?
All those delegates that are in favor of this amendment, please raise your hand.
This motion passes.
Sanctuary cities should cooperate with federal authorities on the matter of illegal immigration by
declaring the amount of illegal immigrants they harbor in the city at a given time.
If you cut funding to San Francisco, California could very well retaliate by cutting funding to the government, which would result in a net loss for everyone.
Steinley's death was something that could have been easily prevented if the city of San Francisco had cooperated and enforced immigration laws.
Because 150 million people want to come into this country. We cannot let 150 million people come into this country.
There's actually no statistically significant difference between sanctuary cities and non-sanctuary cities about whether they breed crime.
We cannot be spending this much money on people who don't even belong to our nation. We cannot house them, we cannot clothe them for at least 5 years. It's just not logical.
All they need to do is state the number of illegal immigrants they know that they have in their city and state any serious crimes posed by those illegal immigrants. That's not asking a lot of them.
We're going to vote on this amendment. All those in favor, please raise your placards. All those opposed? 8 to 10, this amendment fails.
Yes! Why should we limit an experienced senator? Who are some of the most respected senators, such as Senators Feinstein and Graham, who are some of the most respected senators on the floor? Why should we kick them out of office? What do we gain?
The reason that we have term limits with our presidency is because we want the most ideas and we do not want centralization of power.
The 100 senators, if one of them serves a lot of terms, that's not going to have an effect on the overall power so much.
So when we're looking at America's ability to tackle new legislation and face new problems, I feel that forcibly removing experienced senators with experience compromising won't help.
For returning senators, after their second term, they must win their election. 70% of the voters must vote for them to return as a senator. That way it ensures that they're satisfied with that senator.
Let's say the incumbent has 60%, and then another senator has 20. And I just don't think that if you have 20% of the popular vote in your state, then that you would be a good senator.
There's a committee or a court that could decide whether a senator should be reinstated.
Now begin debate on the End Pay Discrimination Through Information Act.
And with the amendment, we will stop lawsuits from being frivolous, but still allow anybody who believes that they are being discriminated against to raise a complaint without fear that they'll be fired just for talking about their salary to their manager.
All those in favor of this amended bill, please raise your placards now. All those opposed? This bill passes. Okay, moving on. So So we will now be debating CEO Employee Paycheck Fairness Act.
If the CEOs are greedy and they want to increase workers' wages to meet these new tax deductions, they may be forced to lay off workers.
These CEOs have to report to a board of directors. They cannot just lay off swaths of people without feeling repercussions.
This bill does not simply put money into the pockets of the CEOs. This bill will make sure that they are using that money for good.
Although there is an incentive, there's no guarantee that CEOs will actually make a move to do anything.
If the organization pays their employees more, then they'll get 1.1 times the original amount, which makes it better for the CEOs and better for the employees.
You are now in a 2-minute conference.
Creating automation creates a $0 workforce.
All those in favor of passing this bill, please raise your placards now.
If we vote the amendment or what?
All those opposed? Okay, so this narrowly fails.
As a compromise, the senators agreed upon a 0.1% import tax on all imports of American companies that do outsource and bring their goods back into America.
Too high a tariff would be a regressive tax that would only hurt our economy, but at the same time, we do need to still incentivize companies to keep their jobs in the U.S.
And that is in the Americans' right, the government's right to tax our companies.
All those in favor, please raise your placards. This motion clearly passes.
We are currently working with Iran in Iraq to take back Mosul. We're working with Iranian soldiers. So this bill could strain tensions between us and create troubles in Iraq where we are trying to defeat ISIS. So
There are marches in Iran and the politicians are saying death to America. I don't think that we're necessarily in good relations with Iran.
We cannot wait for an attack from Iran. We cannot wait as countless civilians suffer in the Middle East from the effect of these missiles. We cannot wait for any more action. We must take this action now by passing this bill.
However, just because we were working together to fight an extreme Islamic group does not mean they are our ally.
The fact that the president can immediately impose these sanctions and absolutely devastate our relationships with Iran in a matter of seconds is unacceptable.
And sanctions are an effective way and a result-friendly way for these to shut down this nuclear program of Iran.
We need to protect the United States and put sanctions on Iran.
We are now going to vote on the Iran Ballistic Missile Sanctions Act. All those in favor, please raise your placards. This motion clearly passes.
Okay, you guys can have a 3-minute break before the next bill.
They are still illegal immigrants. They have no reason to be here. They have no right to be here.
They are helping us, and they are helping grow our economy.
We will not have people pick our food, and this would drastically hurt the economy and our food.
Can we not at least owe them the chance to come here to our nation and build a life for themselves and join our American dream?
And liberty and justice to all. It applies to our American citizens or the illegal immigrants who have not undermined our legal system.
We have created very extensive legal channels for visas and immigration.
The visa system in our country is incredibly broken.
Are you suggesting that parents should leave their children by themselves in a dangerous country rather than bringing them to somewhere where they will help boost our economy and grow our nation?
All those in favor of the amended bill in its entirety, please raise your placards now. All right, all those against. This passes. So we're going to start on the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act.
In my opinion, this bill is a poorly disguised attempt to make it harder to get an abortion. Require anyone who is any senator who is in support of women's rights to vote against this bill.
What we are worried about right now is not whether the child lives or dies. It's whether the woman who tried to get an abortion and the clinic will be held responsible or not.
1.6 million abortions performed each year. There were exactly 100 performed in the third trimester, which is after 24 weeks.
What this bill seeks to do is it just forces hospitals and abortion clinics to treat born alive abortion babies as any other baby with any other rights, born in any other way.
Even if there are only 25 babies who survive failed abortions, those are 25 lives that are in danger.
So, all those in favor of the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, please raise your placards now. All those opposed? This bill narrowly passes. There's 18 to 16.
Okay, delegates, we are going to be talking about Kate's Law.
I support loosening up minimum sentences.
If a citizen broke our laws multiple times, they would be in jail. These people are allowed to do this repeatedly.
Is that really fair to imprison them and penalize the American taxpayer that this bill is sought to protect?
Just because these sanctuary cities are protecting the good, loyal, and hard-working people who are fleeing war and poverty and drug violence, this does not mean that they have more violent people in them.
And the Republican Party is trying to take hope away from those people.
If the sanctuary cities complied with federal law, that Juan Francisco Lopez Sanchez, who was the murderer of Kate Steinle, he would have been deported for a 6th time if the sanctuary city of San Francisco in California complied with federal law.
If sanctuary cities are not going to use the federal funding that we provide for these two agencies, then there is no need to give it to them.
So, delegates, all those wishing to vote in favor of Amendment 1.0, please raise your placards now.
Oh, my bad.
This passes. All those delegates wishing to vote in favor of Amendment 2.0, please raise your placards. Thank you, delegates. All those against? Yeah, this fails. Delegates! All those delegates wishing to vote in favor of the final bill with Amendment 1.0, please raise your placards now. All those against? This clearly fails. We are now going to continue our discussion on the bill concerning limiting terms for members of Congress.
I'm to congratulate our 5th longest serving senator of all time, Patrick Leahy. You have a 74% approval rating, and you've been serving for 42 years. People clearly like their senator, and the senator would not have been able to serve this long and serve the people of Vermont under this.
It is very common for lobbyists to pay senators to influence their views. And term limits don't allow those bonds to form and keep conflicts of interest out.
It's hard to be a nobody that just runs for office and wins against a large senator like myself or Senator Lee.
Although it could be helpful to have new ideas, I think that the level of inexperience that would also come with having new senators is not worth the cost.
Also, if certain members have already memorized and practiced the lengthy and complex rules of the manual of the House, then there's no need to get rid of them.
By limiting term limits, you are telling the citizens that they cannot vote for the senator that they think is right for office. I find this personally insulting.
Because the larger senators who have been here for longer times, they're taking away power from new people who more accurately represent the new generation.
For this resolution, there is a 2/3 majority required in order to pass it. With this in mind, all those in favor of this resolution, please raise your placards now. This fails.
People are capped out at $2,700 per election cycle for president. Corporations have no such cap. If they are truly equal, then both should be limited. Thank you.
Political spending is a form of free speech that is protected under the First Amendment. Why should top executives have more of a say in who's in our government than the average person?
The goal of money in election is to inform voters of different policies presidents espouse, and this only contributes to more turnout and more informed populace, and is generally plays a good role in the election cycle as it helps inform the voter.
And why should we, the United States of America, favor businesses over our very own people.
All those wishing to vote in favor of this resolution, as a reminder, we need 2/3 to pass this. So please raise your placards now. All those opposed? So this fails.
Motion to close debate.
Okay, that is in order. All those in favor of this motion, please